back.
We back, baby. Welcome to another episode of Anything Will Work. This is episode 12, currently untitled at the time of recording. We usually title them after the fact.
And if you're watching, you might notice something a little different this time.
Yeah.
Special guest.
Yeah, special guest here tonight. Sitting between us.
Yeah, you want to introduce yourself?
What up, y'all? I'm Miles Menafee. Good friend of Caleb and Shane's. They're a big reason of why I moved here to Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really.
Deadass?
Deadass. So I'm really honored to be on the podcast. Big fan. I guess it's like what a white boy would feel like if he went on Joe Rogan. I don't know.
No, probably very similar, honestly. I feel like, okay. No shit. Wait, okay. Let's finish your introduction, though. In case you didn't know, Miles also is a host of his own podcast with our good friend and his brother, Miles Menafee. Real Ballers Read. You should check them out on Instagram and also check out their podcast.
Thank
also,
you for the shout outs that y'all are giving, man. Blessed.
Oh, of course, man.
Yeah.
Big fans.
And we know Miles from high school as well, so it goes way back. It goes way back.
Goes way, way back. And also, for those who can't see but are hearing, I hope you can I wanted you to know that we've also got a gradient going on screen right now.
Oh my.
So you should definitely check out the YouTube channel to get the
What is it,
full
gradient?
video
Don't
version.
even worry
Don't even worry about the gradient, buddy. If you know, you know. If you know, you know.
And so a reminder, it's an open invite. If anyone wants to be a guest on the show, please let us know. We'll be happy to have you.
The bar is low.
Yeah. Oh.
I had to beg them.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, friends, family. If you're doing something awesome that is like, a life passion and not necessarily related to your job, actually, no, don't have it related to your job, but you would just love to share. Like, if you're writing a book, you're creating like movies, you're making dope music, like, and even if you're just like a regular schmegular person, just living their life beyond, off the clock, please, we'd love to have you.
Right. Actually, and not to put you on the spot, Miles, but like before we get started, do you just want to like talk for like 2 seconds about Real Ballers Read? Let people know what you're working on.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. What can I say? It's always changing. But my brother and I basically over quarantine, realized that we had a really strong passion for reading books, and we were just like, let's share it with the world. We had a blog for probably like a couple of years where we were just like posting book reviews too, and we were just like, why haven't we shared this with any friends yet? And so we did, and now we're like posting book reviews to our Instagram page and site, and I don't know what else to really say. And we've had a spin-off podcast called the Real Ballers Read podcast, where we invited like academics, writers, other.
I thought you meant DJ academics.
DJ. It's like
to talk about the books that have really shaped them, their favorite books, and it's been a really fun, formative experience. But yeah, it's always changing. Really, it's just been fun though. That's what I do for free. Basically, I'm not making money on it yet. So
that's what's up. I mean, we're not making any money on this either. So. These passion projects meet passion projects. So please.
But I mean, if anyone out there that's listening would like to throw some bread,
for real,
please.
Hey, you got something to sponsor
to any of us.
I'll read whatever.
Yeah, for real. Like
you can put whatever tag in the top left, top right, bottom left.
Right there you go. Bam,
right.
Bam.
We got you. Cash App, Instagram.
Cash App. I take Zelle personally. Or crypto.
What is your phone number?
I'll put nice try. Nice try. I learned that trick from my buddy Candice.
Candice.
Which Candice?
Wow.
Got him.
Which Candice? I honestly don't know. Candice Owens? Candice Parker? Is a basketball player.
Whoosh. Damn.
Which Candice?
Man.
For Phineas and Ferb?
Are you gonna finish the joke?
Honestly, at this point, I don't even know who's gonna have to say it.
You're gonna let me just sit in this. Who Candice? Who is Candice?
Can this dick fit in your mouth?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what a setup.
Yeah.
What a setup. That's crazy. I was supposed to be a guest, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. You're right. I was supposed to. That was not me being a good host.
It's gonna leave 2 minutes on the show.
Yeah, damn. We disclaiming.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have many guests anymore.
That's actually so funny, bro. Because that build-up was crazy. I was like,
No, it was so long. He was guessing. That's why I was like, oh shit, he doesn't know.
I know.
And he knows now.
Alright, so what we doing today?
Honestly, today is a special episode, but you already know that. We got our boy Miles here. So what we decided to do today was focus more on the stories, the storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, this collective friendship, knowing each other has been 9+ years, which is wild.
That is crazy.
Wild.
We getting old.
Yeah, I've known Caleb since I was 14. Yeah, 14. Okay, since I was 14, I've known Miles since I was 15. Yeah, so you know, it's a good long time to know somebody. And yeah, like we just want to dive deep into our brains, and we'll hope you'll enjoy the journey with us. So we each wrote some questions to prompt conversation.
Yeah.
We'll see if we get to all of them, but
Shane, you want to get started and go down the line?
yeah, absolutely. I actually don't even have to read mine off my phone because I remembered it. What social stigma do you think society just has to drop? Like, we gotta get rid of it. You know? Like, okay, we've had its time in the sun of us being haters. We gotta drop it now.
Oh, being okay.
Yeah,
It's a good question.
That is a great question.
Yeah.
Social stigma.
And you're saying, like, if I snap my fingers, it would just, like, disappear. It would be gone, or, like, we would still have to work through it? Because we're working through a lot of it.
Let's say that, like, we have to really work through it. Like, all right, guys, we got 3 months. By the end, like, we're done. We figured it out. It's settled. You know? No dilly-dallying. I actually don't know how to answer.
You have one?
Myself.
I got one.
All right, go ahead, shoot.
I feel like we gotta get rid of being afraid to do stuff by yourself.
Ooh, damn!
Like,
that's fire.
So I mean, just for instance, like you never really see people like go out to dinner by themselves. Like you might see people like going for a walk, whatever. But like, as far when it comes to like the stuff that people kind of consider as like dates or like coupley type things or things to do with your friends, like for the most part, I feel like it is stigmatized to do by yourself. But I will say, like, I went to go see a movie by myself, and honestly, that was like one of the most enjoyable experiences that I've had going to the movie theater.
Big cosign.
I haven't gone to a restaurant by myself yet to like really like sit down, eat, like, and enjoy like a really nice meal. But I'm gonna do that in 2022. You know, I'm gonna end the stigma. I'm gonna end the stigma. Cause I mean, okay, to like bring it to make it more personal, like when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Like going to the dining hall was like a stressful experience because like you had to find somebody to sit next to.
You're not gonna sit by yourself.
You can't just go and sit at a table by yourself because then everyone's looking at you like, who is this weirdo over here?
No friends.
No friends.
Now you got no friends and you live here.
And if there were times, I'm sure everyone had this time where like, oh, well, maybe someone's still at sports practice or like someone's doing homework, they're sick, whatever, and like, damn, I don't have nobody to go to dinner with right now.
Right.
I really hope there's someone there that I can see and sit next to because if not, I'm gonna be looking like a weirdo.
Can't handle
weirdo.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be the case. So that's my stigma. That's my stigma I want to get rid of.
That's a really great one. Way it started off strong, man. Big cosign. We should do that more. Just take care of ourselves and do shit by ourselves.
Facts.
Now I'm trying to think of one.
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I feel like I kind of started us off with a toughie. I mean, you killed it. So, you know what? I'll say one. It's kind of a broad one. Asking for help. Like that's one I wrestle with all the time. So bad at it. Like I just, you know, anytime I have a problem, like my first instinct is like, oh this out. Like, yo, I gotta get it together. Like, I never even think to ask for help until usually it's like way too late.
But let me ask you something, not to like cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Do you think that's, and not to make this like a binary question, but do you think that's a man thing? Honestly,
I don't know. I think in part. I think men are encouraged. I think men are encouraged not to ask for help. I do feel like some part of that pride is like, cis heterosexual, like, yeah, like you gotta figure this out. But I mean, I was raised by like two women, my mom, and my grandma. And so I felt like models of that weren't like a big thing in my upbringing. I think a big part of it is pride. Like, I feel like growing up, I was told consistently, because I did like well in school, like I was kind of like quick on the pickup. Like, it's like, oh, like, Shane, like, you're so smart, like you can do like anything you want. And I'm like worried, like, part of me is like, no, I definitely can't. I'm not that smart. But like, I think I internalized the idea that like I singular can do anything. So like when something's not going well, it's like, this is my fault because like I'm doing something wrong, and not like, hey, maybe I just didn't understand this, and like this is an opportunity to sort of get some insight so you can like fix the problem. So for me, it's like, no, like I'm fucking up. Like I have to figure it out. Like if I'm making a mistake, I have to fix it, which prevents me from asking for help. And pride's been part of it too. I'm like, nah, like, I'm not gonna ask somebody else to do this shit. Like,
right.
I'm Shane, man. Come on, like Shane's smart.
You're him.
I'm that guy. I'm him.
You're him.
I'm that guy.
Yeah.
That reminds me, Caleb used to do this thing where it's actually back in high school too. I was like, man, I feel like I'm not like well known on campus. Like everyone just like sees Shane. This is early on.
Oh,
I feel like by the end, people were like, oh, yeah. But at the start, I felt like I wasn't like super social.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, like I'm just not like well known. Like everybody was Caleb. Caleb was like, oh, you're a celebrity in my eyes, Shane. And like he says this shit like every conversation we've had in the last 10 years, like you're a celebrity in my, and like at first it was really annoying.
That is true.
But it's low key inspirational. Like, yeah, like I'm famous, bro. But it's kind of a side tangent.
Wow.
Yeah,
I forgot all about that.
we gotta drop it.
You used to get
It's
pissed
really
off at me
beautiful.
for saying.
I used to get. I was livid.
Yeah.
It's like stop. Like, stop. It's like I'm really no. I'm not doing this right now.
Well, you meant it in like an honest way or like a funny way at first?
Both.
It had to be. Yeah, it had to be funny.
Definitely both.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah, but definitely drop that stigma. Like, ask for help. And like honestly, I'm telling this to myself as well. I'm gonna listen back to this episode, like at some point while like Bad Things editing or like when it's out, and I'm gonna be like, damn, like I need to ask for help more often. It helps.
I don't even know if my answer qualifies, and I know it doesn't.
Well, I mean,
but ghosting it's more of a practice. But I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to bring it up because I've heard like both folks say it's a really good thing, but I think it's more really bad. And I'm like, it's a thing that's come up, through having phones, through texting, DMs, all of this.
Right.
And I think there are times it makes sense, and there are other times where it collects so much, like, I don't know, weight on people when you just get ghosted.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Over time.
Wait, can I
I don't
ask
know
you?
if it's a stigma though. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's definitely frowned upon, but it's not a.
Yeah.
Right.
What's like? Because you said there's an argument that it's like a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's good about
What
ghosting?
what are people's? Not saying it's your argument, but what are people usually saying?
And this is what's interesting. All the pro ghosting arguments I've heard are from women, and that makes sense. Because then there are more, I would say, creepy guys.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where girls just
fair.
want to be like, yo, I'm not talking to you, right?
Like, that's right.
And-
For my
right,
safety,
right.
Yeah.
But still, I think there are many girls too that have said, right, it's really sad when guys just like cut off all contact.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And right through like dating apps, texting, like I think it has just become a big thing that folks don't know what to do with.
I think it's like the internet in general has made things just a lot more impersonal.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see it too. Online dating has created this really weird environment for dating, as far as I'm seeing it from the outside, right? Where like it's actually really impersonal, even though the point is supposed to be like personal. Like the sole focus at this point, what they're most successful at, is getting you to hook up with somebody. You know, like even Snapchat, which I would argue started as like an online dating app, like disappearing messages. Like, come on, like
Yo, the early days of Snapchat
were crazy.
were crazy. So I heard, because we were 15 and we definitely weren't getting that kind of correspondence at all. No, but yeah, like it's just it's really about like, okay, like superficial, like quick, this disappears, like it's an in and out experience. And so I feel like ghosting sort of becomes like literally ghost is like the logo for Snap. Like ghosting becomes like an essential practice, not just in dating, but just in most online interactions.
Right.
Like, you know, like people have been ghosted on like jobs or like just like and making friends and like you know, like you just you send your application in and it's like, oh, like it's gonna be lit, and they don't even get back to you ever. Like you just never know.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like a big thing of how the internet has in ways made life a little bit more unsatisfying. But I think it's a good point. Like it's not always bad to ghost.
Right.
You know, like is it worse to ghost somebody or to
be ghosted?
Well, no, not in that. This. Oh, let's say, okay, what's worse, getting ghosted or having your expectations fucked with?
What do you mean?
In the sense of like somebody like knows like this isn't going anywhere in any sense, right? Like romantically, sexually, or otherwise. But they like basically entertain the idea with you to the point where you meet up. Like, is it worse to get your hopes up and then be disappointed, or to just be ghosted and to never know what could have been?
Okay, so I see what you mean, but at the same time, like when you get ghosted, your expectations are also still getting fucked up, but just in a different way. Because you're expecting it's like some sort of response, like you're expecting there to be like continued or like at least conversation going forward.
Right.
And so you're sitting there waiting for that for 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 1 month, and then it's like, ah, damn. Like that.
It ain't happening.
You know?
It's a dub.
So either way, the best is just be like transparent.
Yep.
True. That's really the.
Wait, so where is the stigma in ghosting? Because I was trying to figure that out.
Oh, like is it positive or negative?
Would it really be like, oh, not being forward in texting more often and just not letting it go to ghosting? You know what I'm saying? Like,
so what the should
I'm
be?
just trying to make it fit.
So should it be that like ghosting is more accepted? Like you're just like, oh, I got ghosted, that's it, or is it like we should just drop ghosting as the practice? Is ghosting the stigma? Is the cowardice of like not just cutting something off?
It's the cowardice, I guess, or it's the not sending that final message. Like,
right, of being like,
I want to go.
I'll say this.
Here's just say I want to go.
Here's my take. I feel like being ghosted should be destigmatized. That's the part.
Yes. Okay.
Because at the end of the day, like everybody ghosts, but no one really like feels bad about it until they're the one that's ghosted.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's so true.
You gotta be okay with it.
So like,
because you're gonna do it.
Like, you know, it happens.
There's the take.
It happened. You know, I mean, it happens to everybody.
Yeah,
I love that one.
Everybody gets ghosted at some point.
I got ghosted like 3 times in the last week.
Oh. It's gotta be okay, Miles.
But see, like, like low key, is it karma? How many people have I ghosted? Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
You should know.
You should know.
What do you mean?
Wait,
you should know.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this episode live, go ahead. Go to Real Ballers Read. Whatever the most recent Instagram picture is, I want you to post the number. No context. That's just how many people do you think Miles is ghosted. Don't post anything. No other words.
We'll put up a
just
poll.
the number.
We'll put up a little poll.
Put up a little poll when the episode drops.
How many people is Miles ghosted?
Yeah. Just take your guess.
What is your next question though?
It's you now.
Yeah, you go. Or take my spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, Miles, your question.
So I wanted to ask something real simple.
Okay.
But like, given all the bad news that we've gotten for years now, I want to ask y'all, what gives you hope for the future?
Damn.
That's not simple, bro.
It's not, right?
Yeah.
It's a simple question, but it's hard
It's a
for
hard
me to
answer.
answer. Yep.
Yeah, what gives hope? Hope for the world, hope for the future. I mean, the youth, I guess.
But schools, we teach, bro. You know, there's no.
We don't talk about.
Bro,
We
these
don't
kids
talk
are
about
bad.
work.
These kids are
We
bad.
don't talk about work on the
Oh, right.
podcast. But
These kids are bad.
with that being said, I feel like kids are doing the same shit that kids were doing when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
It might not have been me, but kids were doing. Here's the difference I'll say. And it's like this is a pro and con in terms of the hope, but we're talking about the positives, right? The internet has irreversibly connected us in ways that our brains simply have not adapted enough to handle, for better or for worse. Like, at most, we're supposed to know 150 people ever. How many friends you got on Facebook before Facebook became
Like 2,000.
How many friends you got on Facebook?
A lot more than 150.
Yeah, same. A lot more. So, like, this the fact that we've encountered so many people in our lives, like, even statistically, right? The idea of a boarding school where you're taken from place all over the country, like Texas, Ohio, Massachusetts, and we've known each other for 10 years, like, that's not supposed to happen. And it's enriching, but, you know, it's unusual. So I feel like that opportunity for connection with a generation that grows up with that as a norm, I feel like they can stand to reap the most benefits and the worst, like, consequences of that, you know, depending on, like, where they're at and everything. So sometimes that gives me hope that just, like, you know, people our age and younger are going to be doing dope things. But, you know, sometimes I also worry that we'll continue to recreate the, you know, systemic issues and the systems that, you know, oppress others and keep us in the same place. So ultimately, my hope is that, you know, the positive end of that is the result. You know?
That's a fair answer.
Yeah.
You got one?
Yeah, I think my answer is a little strange, and I don't even know if it will work out in a positive way. But I think an event that gave me hope in this past year was the Great Resignation.
Oh,
yeah. And I say this because, like, folks were, like, quitting jobs that they didn't like, and I think that is a positive just for, like, humans knowing that their lives were, like, finite and right, they weren't gonna live for forever. So it's like, I want to spend my time, like, well. And I think even us doing our passion projects coming out of the quarantine, it really shows you that, like, I think life has just been, like, more honored and valued for the time,
Right.
and folks are not willing to work jobs that they don't like now. So I think that was one event, kind of, that's still ongoing. But, you know, hopefully those folks find jobs that could be really positive.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
But that's my answer.
I think that's a great answer. I don't know, like, my answer, I feel like my answer kind of pushes back on Shane's answer a little bit.
Yeah, some pushback. I like it. We don't get enough contention on this show.
Because, like, I mean, first of all, kids are kids. Kids are gonna be kids. If I'm being honest, I don't interact with kids enough to get hope from children.
Fair.
Whenever I see a kid, I'm like, damn, I don't want a kid. That's my thought.
Like, at all? Like, wait, hold on. Like, you don't want a kid, like, ever?
No. I want to have kids in the future, but I'm saying, like when I see a child right now, I'm like, thank God I do not have any kids.
Right. Then that's not my problem right now.
Yeah. And I don't plan on having any kids anytime soon. That's for sure.
Yeah, big cosign.
But, like, I mean, I don't, like, my answer is, like, us. Like, and so, like, obviously, like, the people sitting at this table, like, the people, like, I don't know, that I, like, choose to associate myself with. Like, I feel like we're the future. Like, before the kids, like.
Right. I mean, we're right here. We're still young.
I don't know. I feel like we lose perspective a little bit because, like, I mean, I feel like it's human nature to kind of project yourself older or like more mature than you actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And I only say that because like I remember when I was 16 years old, I remember when I was 8 years old, and I was like, I'm a big kid, or like when I was 16 years old, like I can run this shit. Like I'm 16, who's gonna tell me no, basically, right? But like looking back at that age now, it's like I didn't know shit.
Right. I wish somebody had told me no.
And now I'm sitting here at 24. I just turned 24 years old, and again I still feel like I could run this shit at 24. But the reality is like we're all still like extremely young. Like we're all still like growing. We're all still like figuring out who we are, like individually, and like we are like really like the ones in position to like grow into those like future leaders that like really help shape the world. And like I believe like in myself. I believe in the people that I surround myself with, and like so I don't know. I feel like that's what really like inspires hope for me on a daily basis.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is
Yeah, man, that's a great
that's
answer.
that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's great.
So long story short, fuck them kids.
Oh, shit!
Oh!
Kids ain't doing shit. We'll have done it by the time the kids
I'm
are
not
our age.
gonna lie. Like, I think we were born at the right age. Because I think, like, even a couple years younger than us, all these kids grew up with, like, Snapchat, TikTok, IG in ways that we even didn't. Where it was, like, so ingrained in a part of their lives from a young age that, like, every time I interact with even, like, infants now, they're scrolling on iPads. I'm like, dang, y'all even have toys?
Yeah,
Like,
that's nice.
we used to have toys.
Yeah,
How do they even have
to
toys?
fill in the gaps
Exactly.
yourself. Yeah.
Exactly.
Legos, like,
Exactly.
come on,
But like
yeah.
now it's just apps and TikToks. Like I really was waiting to get some fried chicken wings. Super Bowl Sunday. And there was a 3-year-old girl doing a TikTok dance to the T. And she kept doing it. I was like, I don't know. It just felt weird.
That is weird.
Because she was perfect at it. And the song kept playing and playing. But I'm just like, man, like, what are you seeing on that app?
I mean, it's the whole idea of like mimetic potential. Like even the origin of like the word meme is like an idea that recreates itself, is reproduced, like function like idea.
Wait, bring it. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm just pausing you there because I'm actually like I'm unfamiliar with like the origins of the word.
The origin. Okay, wait, hold on.
But it seems like it seems like you're kind of like touching on it for so like inform us.
So from my very informal understanding, and if I fuck this up, Bad Ting will come in and give the exact definition. In fact, Bad Ting should do it anyway. I'm just gonna paraphrase my understanding.
Okay.
French word, generally just an idea that spreads. Like something that is like
what's the word?
Le même or something like that. Like I'm probably fucking this up. Bad Ting's gonna fix it.
Not quite, Shane. The word meme is British actually. Coined by Richard Dawkins, who said that memes are a unit of cultural transmission. Quote, memes are to culture what genes are to life. Just as biological evolution is driven by the survival of the fittest genes in the gene pool, cultural evolution may be driven by the most successful memes. End quote. Sounds about right.
But it's just like an idea that spreads. And of course, like, it's, 4chan starts doing this thing and they find some nerd on 4chan attaches the word to it and then it becomes like the wider idea. But I think my understanding of memes is that it's functionally like a virus. It's a virus of ideas. Like, and the thing is, like, information that's retained in something that has mimetic potential, something that will end up repeating itself, like, it just becomes a thing because it becomes a thing. Like, every potential virus that could develop isn't going to be the next big thing. But sometimes you have the superstar. No one knows exactly why it's going to, like, take the world by storm, COVID, but it just does. And that's kind of like a meme. Like, honestly, like, try and explain why some of this shit is funny. It's like, you can't. But it just is. Like, it just...
That's a great
That's
point.
fair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just...
that's fair.
It hits the zeitgeist and, like, it just works. And so I feel like shit like TikTok dances is a great example of, like, mimetic potential, like, where, like, the original thesis disappears. Even, like, the idea of, like, oh, like, who gets credit for creating this shit? Like, sometimes, like, it's kind of like death of the author. Like, it doesn't even matter who made the dance in the first place after a certain point. because we just forget. We don't get to tap into that origin because we learned about it from somebody who learned about it from somebody else who copied it off this, who copied it off this, who added a move. So like, you know, the idea of like, okay, there's an origin to this sort of becomes irrelevant, and it gets problematic when we introduce it to kids or those who just don't have that ability to critically analyze like, what does this mean? Like you can even say shit like saying nigga is like a meme. Essentially, right? Because, people who I think everyone at this table would be like wary about, like, yeah, you should not be, that's not your place to be saying nigga.
At this table?
I feel like we're on the same page where, like, if Joe Rogan.
Oh,
yeah. Which he has, by the way. One thing that puts us over Joe Rogan is we can say the N word. So, just want to put that out there. Yeah.
He says it too.
I mean, he says it too.
On the show?
Well, he got caught, dropping, he basically said at one point he was in a black neighborhood and compared it to Planet of the Apes. Which, okay, guys, cancel culture this, cancel culture that. That's objectively fucked up. People are like, oh, I want to defend Joe Rogan. Look at what he actually said. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. Sorry, I've seen the Planet of the Apes movies. No, it doesn't look like any niggas I know.
What was it said? Caesar?
Yeah, Caesar. No! Donkey Kong, that shit. Yeah, no, but that doesn't look like any black person I know, actually. So, suck my dick from the back, Joe Rogan. Put me on the show, we'll debate about it. Because don't just put me on the show because I'm like, oh, I'm an anti-vaxxer. No, let's get some actual controversy. I don't like you. So, let's talk. Calling you out right now.
Hey, yo.
On Spotify. Let's talk about it, bro. Let's talk about it. All the smoke. I want all the smoke. You and Kevin Hart to a lesser extent. Yeah, that's all.
Let's
That's
not
all.
put them in the same category.
They're not. They're not in the same category. They're not in the same category. I want more of the smoke with Joe Rogan than I don't even know. Oh, let's rewind, because I'm on a tangent. The point is, we disconnect from the actual meaning behind something when it spreads. Because as it gets a wider umbrella, it means less to people. I honestly believe, white kids who get caught saying the N-word, when they're like, I didn't know it was bad. I still think they're being dumb, because you should know. But also, when your only exposure to it is when it's been through, 1,600 horses' mouths, and it just feels like it doesn't have any weight to it, of course, it feels meaningless to you, especially because you're white and you weren't born into that context. So for me, it's kind of I don't know. I feel like that's definitely a downside of the internet culture. Is you have 3-year-olds doing a TikTok dance, and of course there is dancing, and part of that is very much innocent. They're 3, but if a dance has moves that collectively would be oh, that's pretty sexual or inappropriate for a child, they're not thinking with that context because it's the meme. It's the idea without substance. They're not thinking about origin. They're not thinking about context. They're not thinking about meaning. It doesn't have meaning. It's just funny or entertaining because it is. With memes, we don't. If we ask why it's funny, it's not funny anymore. But we legitimately don't know why it's funny. If you put a picture of a fat Yoshi, maybe you've seen Big Yoshi before. Bad Ting is gonna put up a picture of Big Yoshi, and he's listening to this. If you're listening to this episode, I tell Bad Ting to do this because.
Why did I think Bad Ting was actually here? I was excited. What are you
talking about? She is. You're excited to meet.
Yeah.
Bad Ting, can you introduce yourself to Miles?
Hey, Miles.
Hey, it was a long time coming.
Yeah, she
hasn't met earlier.
Surprised you haven't met before. Surprised she hasn't ghosted you yet.
Sup, baby? Take me out to dinner first.
Wow.
I would literally pay a screenwriter to recreate her with me and Bad Ting. Great story.
Let's talk later, Miles. Spike Jones happens to be a personal friend of mine.
What would the black version of her even be called? She?
Him.
I'm him.
I'm him.
Moonlight.
I want to be the name of the episode, honestly. He's him.
My favorite comedian right now, Dorian Travis, he has a joke where he's like, my friends keep calling me Moonlight, and he's like, I feel like that's too good a movie to compare me to, Mahershala Ali kills it. Like, you know, all the actors, like the script writing is amazing. He's like, I just got a hand job on the beach. Like, it's not the same.
That's a funny joke.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. He's funny. If you guys haven't heard Yadoye, please check him out. He's dope.
And that's not a sponsor.
That's not. He's not. No one's paying us.
No, free.
No one's paying us.
No one's paying us.
Wait, Caleb. Your question.
Oh yeah, my question.
Yeah.
I know the question. In 40 years from now,
Yikes.
what will you be nostalgic about from today?
Can I go first?
Go ahead.
Drake's not gonna make it to the 2060s.
That's wow. No way. That's
Wait.
that's a hot
Wait,
take.
you mean living?
No, he's gonna be alive.
Oh.
I hope. I'm not wishing
Wait,
death on the man. I'm not wishing death on the man.
First of all, wait. One, that does not answer my question.
Right,
So-
you seem like you just wanted to hate
Yeah,
on
I'm not hating. I'm not hating.
I was gonna say this is not
Wait,
answering my question, so you're just hating.
No, look at
Second
me.
of
We
all,
will be nostalgic.
second of all,
about
that is
Drake,
cap. That's
100%.
also just cap.
No, they said we're gonna be nostalgic.
No, even if you're not, even if you personally are not nostalgic,
I'm saying I
about
will
Drake,
be.
people are going to be still talking about Drake the way people are talking about fucking the Beatles.
But that's what I'm trying to say.
Laughing at me.
Wait, hold on. Let me.
Go ahead.
First
Go
of
ahead.
all,
say your answer.
Drake, bop after bop after bop after bop after bop. What I'm saying is Drake, we're always gonna be talking about this man. Period. Like, I'm not denying that at all. I just want to be clear.
So what are you saying about the year?
No, I was just saying, like, 40 years from now, we're really going to be looking back and appreciating what this moment in his career was now. Like, we've been alive from the start to current status of Drake's career. And we got to appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like the music that people think is the most iconic is the shit that was around when they were teenagers. Like, if you're reading This Is Too Late, I remember the exact moment that dropped.
Yeah.
I remember the bed I was in. I
So
remember
what
when
you
I
say
jumped
is not
out.
gonna be around?
Right.
The Drake
He's
we
gonna be
know.
70 years old.
No,
Yeah.
no, but I'm saying he's gonna be around. It's just gonna be different. Cause can you imagine 70-year-old Drake making the same music?
He's not gonna be making music. He's gonna retire. Like, no way.
But you know, some artists
Have
never.
a feature.
No,
You know
no.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But okay, he'll be different. But some artists never really like
Yeah.
retire. You know what I
He's
mean?
like Jay-Z.
Jay-Z is still doing shit. Like, I would say he's still an active artist. Like, Prince was making music well up until the point that he died. You know?
That's very true.
Michael Jackson was about to go on his comeback tour. And mentioning those two is interesting because they didn't die old, sadly.
Mhm.
Like, you know, but I do feel like Drake is not Childish Gambino. Childish Gambino's the type of nigga to be like, I got one more album in me.
Wait.
And by the time I'm 40,
Hold on.
I'm done making
Wait,
music.
pause, time out.
Okay, I'm making sense. I'm making somebody.
Wait, say that again. You
Can I say it again?
Childish Gambino is one to retire early.
Childish Gambino is someone who would rather choose to rest on his laurels than to continue with something if he felt like it was done.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, he's not going to keep doing
Fair.
one thing if he felt like I've done that and I'm done with it. Drake, I feel like, is someone who is like, I want to continue to build my legacy, which he's continuing to do.
Let me pause you for a second though.
Okay.
Can we be honest? Because I love Childish Gambino too. Like, Atlanta is dope. His music is fire.
Right.
I watched Community, some episodes here and there.
You got to watch the whole show, bro.
I haven't watched the whole show. I've seen a few episodes here and there. Like, obviously he's like an incredibly talented person. Can we be honest though? Like, 40 years from now, we're not gonna be talking about Childish Gambino.
Cap.
No, let's be honest.
If I were to bet my money,
Let's be honest.
I don't know.
Let's be honest.
Wow.
Let's be
all
let's
the way
really
honest.
be
We
honest. Like,
absolutely will.
honestly, the people that like really transcend their decade, their era, whatever. Like, when it comes to like entertainment or sports or whatever, like it really is like 2 or 3 people that get remembered.
But it's different now.
And he's not going to be in those 2 or 3.
No, but we're going off the standards of people who are hot when our parents were our age or their parents were our age. Like, music and just fame is so different now. Because it's not even, some would argue the bar is lower. I would argue that the field is way bigger. Like, even it's the idea of like black famous. Like people didn't know who fucking Pam Grier was. Like if you're not black, like that name might not ring any bells for you. Like even like Aretha Franklin, a fucking iconic legend. I know there's a lot of people who probably would have had no idea who she was, right? Because there's just like different realms of fame, and I feel like that's even bigger now. Like for me, like the internet is one of my favorite bands. Most people I know would not be able to be like, oh yeah, like Sid the Kid, like she's famous to me. She's not. Like Steve Lacy's pretty big right now, but like Steve Lacy might not always be like remembered in the same way we would remember like on Michael Jackson because he's not that big. But I don't feel like anyone can get to the level of fame that these people used to get to because being famous meant something else back then.
Very true.
Yes, you know? And no. Like I okay. Here's the thing. Like I agree with you, but I still think at the end of the day, like there's levels to it.
Yeah, I mean Drake is like everywhere,
and like Drake is like. I don't know. It's like the old like debate discussion, whatever, about like being a star versus being a superstar. And like at the end of the day, like Drake is a superstar. Drake could literally never put out a single piece of content again, whether it's like music, if he goes back into acting, whatever. Like he can literally put out nothing ever again, and people will continue to follow him, his child, like who he's dating, whatever, like in perpetuity. Just because it's Drake and like because of what he's accomplished thus far, and that's just like and I mean this like in no disrespect at all, but like Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, he's just not in that stratosphere.
But my argument is, does he have to be in the same way? Not because he's not. He's not.
But to
Drake.
make your point.
To make my point accurate, but it's like, is he going to be relevant in 40 years? Yeah. To me, absolutely. To a lot of people, like people still talk about Twin Peaks, and like David Lynch is like an immortal eldritch being to most people.
Who's talking about Twin Peaks?
Well, you
okay, take your. I'm trying to ask you. Take your personal bias out of it.
I'm trying. I really am.
Take your personal
as much as I can.
Because I know that's your guy.
That's my guy. But like, also like, he's not my guy sometimes. What? The last album is literally a date. Every song is a different timestamp of the album. That's the title. Like, that's confusing. I don't like when he does shit like that. Like, Childish Gambino for me is like a person who I really enjoy, but also I'm like, I do feel like you're a little too pretentious for your own good. He's clearly brilliant, but like, I do feel like his work can be very inaccessible in the way he presents it. And while I respect that as a creative decision, I can also say that could be limiting for his popularity, if that was something that's ultimately important to me. But because I know that there are way more active Childish Gambino fans, and people who would be more active than me, I can respect the fact that in 40 years they will look back and say, like, this nigga was a big deal. And then like you have other shit, like his fame is sort of also linked with the fame with a lot of other people. Like Dan Harmon makes Community. And then Dan Harmon is one of the co-creators of Rick and Morty. So like,
no one's gonna be talking about Dan Harmon for 40 years, bro. Let's be honest.
Yeah, like, tell Dan Harmon that.
The 80s. Who do we talk about today from the 80s?
Eddie Murphy.
And who's Michael Jackson?
Exactly.
Right.
Mike Tyson. Like.
Right, and they're all still around.
The 90s, like,
yeah.
Right. But like it's like the top of the top in that specific like bracket. Like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, that's the 80s. You know what I mean? That's it.
There's a specific era of time.
There's 1 to 3 people max.
You
could just name like 4 or 5 people. That's all I'm saying.
Here's my hot take about black culture, because we run this shit worldwide, right? But my question is, why do we find it necessary to compare rappers, athletes, artists of all kinds to each other? Like, and this is kind of the heart of the versus battle, but like, I just don't ever hear other groups in the same way that we do, like say like, oh, Taylor Swift is better than
Olivia Rodrigo.
Exactly. Like, they don't beef in the way that we do.
She is.
Like Drake, J. Cole, Kendrick, Kanye, like Michael Jordan. Like,
I think it's
LeBron James. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
It's like, there's so much, especially for someone like Drake, I feel is one of the most unnecessarily hated people on this earth.
Wait,
Literally, we will look back, and this is my answer. We will look back.
And speaking of
Exactly. We will look back to this time. This man has made the catchiest music possible. Love him, hate him, but like, bro, like this man has made music that I want to dance to, get lit to, like.
What else, Miles?
Go to the gym too. No, not
go through.
Don't pick up anything, right? Like
get
even,
ghosted.
Go
somewhere.
Exactly, man. Like we love and appreciate Drake. Everything this man's put out. So it's like, right? Why do we spend so much time comparing them all the time? I just don't get it.
You know what?
You see what I'm saying though too. You see what I'm saying?
I 100% see what you're saying.
I see it. I agree, because I think a big part of it, and also I think it's important that we're talking about Drake in this conversation, right? I think hip-hop, it's two things, right? Not always at the same time. I think it's like there can only be one-isms. Like, it's just like the idea of like, hey, if we have like our exceptional blacks, like they have to be exceptional in comparison to others. So like the comparisons will come up. But also like, I think it's just sort of like the nature of like, hip hop or anything that feels competitive, and like I think the biggest like conversation we talk about who's the best of all time might be with sports. You know, we talk about like basketball, football, etc. Like, you know, the whole better than Jordan conversation is always going to be around. But then I think hip hop is also a space that fundamentally the culture is rooted in there being a competitive scene.
True.
Like, you know, like battle rap, even like diss tracks, like beef in general, like. You know, niggas have really died over poetry. And, like, yeah, I mean, to be honest, right? Like, it's real life shit. So I feel like even when we're talking about it in, like, a more superficial level, like, I don't think Drake's ever, like, been in, like, some real, like, live or die shit. Like, by default, we assume that there's some level of that space's existence in hip-hop. And to be honest, it's still... like alive and well in different like city cultures, different rap scenes throughout like different regions. So like, I feel like there's this tangibility of like the competition that exists in hip hop, which is why with artists like Drake, like we'll always be having that conversation of like, okay, like is this nigga valid? Because like you know, like is this like real shit? And we're gonna compare this to others, which I feel like is why like you know, depending on the kind of person you are, it really will affect which kind of current like big person in hip hop you'd resonate with and who you'd say is the best. Like I'd say the holy trinity for a long time was Drake, Kendrick, J. Cole. And you know the conversations people would have is kind of like the potentials of collaboration or competition between the three. And really, I mean that shit's not real. Like they all have three very distinct labels and identities and like perspectives. And like there's been some overlap, but for the most part they're kind of doing their own thing. And objectively Drake is the biggest out of all of them. Like he just has, he can tap into the widest audience so far. You know, and whether or not you respect that, I feel like it's ultimately subjective. So I guess all this to say, I feel like we're gonna be talking about Drake. I want to be really nostalgic for the time when it's like we had this kind of platform where like we have all these amazing artists existing at the same time. I think that's the difference from the 80s. Like there was a lot of really exceptional people, but I feel like the field of like exceptional artists and creatives and all that is really, really wide now. So it's kind of like we have no idea who we're going to end up remembering, and I feel like there might not be a consensus in the same way there was about like the same 3 or 4 people. And I feel like I kind of miss that because it does simplify things. Because we're going to be like 60 arguing over, nah, like this nigga was the truth. And you're going to be like, I've never heard of him. How have you not heard of like X? But like they have a legitimate reason that they might not have heard of this person.
Okay, wait. I don't mean to cut you off. I don't know if that was accurate.
Oh no, I'm done. So
I agree with you to a certain extent. Because I do think that 40 years from now, people will have more like individuals that like really resonated with them, like whatever their message may be through like art, sports, entertainment, whatever like medium. Because like things are a lot more accessible. And so like I don't know, if you're like a really big like Kid Cudi stan, right? Like that's probably someone that you're gonna remember when you're 60, 70 years old, right? But like I think what I'm trying to say is that there are going to be like certain individuals that like everyone will remember and everyone will be able to like
That's
Like a Michael Jackson.
like
Like a
a
Michael
Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
So like for you, like yes, and maybe like that individual for you will be Childish Gambino.
But he would just be one of many.
You'll be able to like recall like how that person impacted you, and like you probably won't be the only like individual that is able to like have that experience. But like for the most part, like everyone our age will be like Drake was killing shit.
Yeah.
Kendrick was killing shit.
shit.
And like I remember when
J. Cole
I remember
like double platinum with no features.
Where I was when this came out. Like I remember I was at like this location. I was at this. I was like going to prom. I was going to this dance. I just got into college. Whatever. Like and like this like really resonates with me. And like everyone will have like that sort of shared experience with like a very few amount of individuals.
Right. Like Kanye will always be talking about.
Right.
Wait,
Yeah.
what was your original question though? Because I want to give now a
Oh, just like what are you gonna be nostalgic for 40 years from now?
Yeah.
Because I think the music will stay relatively the same. I am nostalgic now for things 40 years ago that I did not live through at all. Like our parents not having phones. I think about that. It's crazy to me. Like they didn't even text their friends for like party plans. Like they just had to know and go to the place. No IG for like events. We rely on all that so much now. So I'm thinking in 40 years, what is the thing we don't even see coming that would just like totally change the way that we live? Where I'm like, dang, we used to just text. Now we're just like sending.
Now we're mental messages.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I hate having to put up.
I didn't think about that.
Exactly.
That's real. That completely changes my answer.
Right.
Now that I think
Yeah.
Right. So
Because everyone's gonna be like, I hate having to put up a psionic shield when my girl wants to know my thoughts. You know, like that is different.
Yep.
Yeah. Can't take for granted our current state of things.
So actually, to build off of you now that you say that, like for real, I think I'm gonna really be nostalgic for the world without the metaverse.
Oh,
my
please.
God.
Dear God, NFTs, bro, and the metaverse are going to ruin so many things. I just think that the market gets into everything. The digital space, in which is so important in our lives now, has now become just another set of commodities and markets and all this bullshit. Like, why can't we just enjoy something? Like, I feel like it takes away this idea that, like, some people just do shit because it's cool.
Yeah.
And not be and not to say that like to support like artists should starve or anything, like no, I feel like people gotta eat, like, and I get it, like I really do get it, but like ultimately like this shit just feels like a one big scam. Like we're not at the Ready Player One level of technology to make that shit viable or interesting or good.
And like I don't know, like maybe this take will like age really poorly. But honestly, like at the end of the day, like I mean I just like genuinely believe like life is supposed to be like played out in person, like human to human.
I think that's gonna age very well.
Like I feel like that's not. I don't know. Like the fact that that's even a hot take is ridiculous to me. Like all this like virtual reality stuff. Like I understand like why it's like cool, but like I don't believe that it's like really the future of like social interaction.
But see, social media, IG, in my eyes especially, has already primed us for that reality. Because what it is like a social kind of mask over our real lives. You ask who someone is, you immediately pull up their profile.
Their IG, yeah.
So it's like automatically in tandem with our real life, and it's just gonna keep becoming more real. But it's scary to me too.
Yeah. Because it just expands on that. Like it's like, okay, who is somebody, and it's like here's their avatar.
Right.
And it's like, is that who you are?
Thing is, like you pull up like honestly, you can be like, who is somebody, and you not even pull up like their avatar, Bitmoji, whatever. You can pull up like their full like algorithm and be like, they like this, they like this, they like that.
Whoa.
This.
I mean, that
That is crazy.
That's what's interesting is that like those that would sell us things probably know more about us in terms of like what information faces them on social media than we'd be able to learn about each other. Because I mean, I get insanely specific advertisements on Instagram.
Like what, Shane?
No, honestly, I'll be real about it. So I think I mentioned this on the podcast before. If I haven't, I'm mentioning it now. I was recently, like within the last 6 months, diagnosed with ADHD. It's cool. Figured that out. I was like, you know what? Honestly, now that I'm really reading these symptoms in adults, this explains a lot. Okay, cool. Now I get advertisements about specific medications tailored to that on my Instagram. As a matter of fact, I started getting those advertisements before I went and got diagnosed.
That's crazy.
So, like, I honestly think these algorithms are so much more powerful than even is publicly known. It has to be, right? Because it's like a meme that, like, oh, this shit listens to your conversations because we're talking about this, and then it knows. But, like, it definitely does. And that's really weird. Like, even if it's not recording our conversations, which I'm like 70% sure it's not, like, the fact that it doesn't have to be able to predict that, that's crazy powerful. Like, the fact that the people who could have all this information about us and already do have all this information about us in, like, a metaverse world, like, are not, like, people who wish to understand us in terms of, like, who we are. It's to understand us as consumers. Oh, essentially, it's products in ourselves, so that data is inherently valuable. I mean, it's why Instagram and Facebook and Twitter are free. Any product that's free on the internet, you are the product. You're someone to sell ads to, which is fucked.
That's true.
And I definitely will miss a time when that's less intrusive than it already is. And in 40 years.
To weave in Caleb's answer to my question about hope, though, I'm hopeful that actually our generation says no to the metaverse. And says, like, you know what? We're not honestly trying to live that life now. Because I feel like we are even of the age where we have lived a large chunk of our lives with this stuff. And I hope we'll have a choice and just be like, you know what? Let's not do this.
Yeah.
Collectively. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we've already had this talk as friends now. If that can happen on somewhat of a bigger scale, on like Twitter, anything, like, it's like, yo, this is cool.
Like, this is
exactly
what we want to do. I feel like that rejection's kind of already started. Like, you've seen on Twitter, I don't know if you guys have seen this before, they have the NFT profile pictures. Where you can use from your blockchain, you get like the hexagon frame. And everybody's like, that is the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my life. So, like, you know, the flames have been happening. And I think, like, people in general, like adults at least our age, like, have started to reject, like, the monetization of everything. Like, even, like, loot boxes in video games. Like, you know, shit like Overwatch. It's like you pay, like, $5 to get a random chance that you might get the one thing you want, like, as a cosmetic. Like, let me just buy the fucking skin. You know, like, everything gets turned into a lottery, and that's whack. So I hope that, you know, that dies out. And that we will continue to reject it, because people don't fuck with that, you know?
Sure.
You know? If I want to play as LeBron James in Fortnite.
Hey, I'll tell you what. In 40 years, I'm going to be nostalgic for LeBron James.
Ooh.
Nah, you say that.
That's good.
That's a good answer. I've seen him live in person once.
Me too. Only once.
But his last season is about to go crazy. Everyone's got to go.
He was playing with his son.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's going to be something else. It's going to be magical to witness.
Are they really going to make that happen? They have to.
I mean, he said point blank, I'm going to play with my son in my last season. I feel like his last season is conditional on his son being in the league. And then he's going to whatever team he's at.
Man has so much value and worth to the NBA. Like, he's low-key the entire league and has been the face of the league for so long.
I can't imagine a league without him.
Talk about it.
I can't imagine a league without LeBron James.
Talk about it. Honestly, we can say LeBron James at this point, like, his son does not have to be a legitimate NBA player to make an NBA roster simply on the promise that LeBron James will join your team if you sign him.
What's
If
the
we're being honest.
what's the funniest possible team that LeBron and his son end up on, given this situation?
I mean, there's so many like irrelevant teams, right? There's like the Sacramento Kings, like Oklahoma
Featuring
City,
LeBron James.
Like,
Hey, Oklahoma City, put some respect.
like random
We
teams
used to
that
be
like in small markets that like no one really cares about, right? But the reality is, if they were to ever sign like LeBron James, even if it's on like the veteran minimum, which he said he would literally do just to play with his son, like that team would like just from like the business perspective.
Oh yeah.
Like they would
Butts and seats
they would
alone.
make so much money from like the TV,
The jerseys.
LeBron James' final season, like jerseys, selling LeBron and his son together.
He doesn't have to go to the finals of
The
that.
ticket sales, people, everyone's gonna obviously come and see them play together. Like I would do it. I would sign up in a heartbeat.
That team would have the biggest target on his back.
Oh, everyone would be.
Everyone would be playing so dirty.
Somebody would try to injure. Somebody would intentionally like injure LeBron. I think.
100%.
Yeah. They end the season.
So interesting, though.
I actually don't think so. I think at this point, he's been playing for so long that at this point, like everyone that enters the NBA, when you ask them like, who's your favorite player, it's like
it's LeBron James, because they were like,
that's who they grew up watching.
Yeah, it's their hero.
That's crazy, bro. And he's still putting up crazy numbers.
Right.
Yeah, like he's still amazing. So, yeah, we're gonna be nostalgic for LeBron James 40 years from now. That's crazy. Yeah.
That's a fact.
Like the things now I feel like we take for granted as being like so specific to our time. It's hard to imagine being nostalgic in the same way because like they're still present. Like I feel like that's one thing about these days is that like technology is better, people live longer. Like I feel like it's easier to take things for granted because it's not just gonna be like cut short.
Yeah,
like even with the Beatles, everything kind of fell apart there, and then like famously, like people died, like shit changed. But like nowadays, like LeBron has been in it for a minute, like and we're gonna remember him for honestly forever. He's like it's super integral part of like the idea of basketball.
I just think it's so funny because like the old heads that like and like drunk uncles, people at the barbershop, whatever, that like we roll our eyes at, that I'm talking about, like Michael Jackson, like Jordan in the 90s, like all these other like things that like Tupac, Biggie, whatever, like you have to be there. Like at a certain point, we're gonna be the exact same people.
Oh, absolutely.
Talking about like the people from our generation that were like, yo, like you don't understand. You had to be there.
You had to be. Listen, like
Playboy Cardi.
Yeah.
She was dropped. Listen.
Cardi.
Playboy Cardi had to be there. Lucy Bird had to be there. EXO Tour Life.
Honestly, Lucy is one of those people.
You have to be there. You have to be there. I'm gonna be 60 years old. Like you have to understand.
That dude is a straight.
He doesn't really care if you die.
Yeah.
All right. Never even telling a lie. Come on, bro.
Yeah, no, that
Push me to the edge.
That was crazy.
Yeah, you don't get moments like that again.
You had to be there.
Raindrop.
Yeah.
Drop top.
The Migos.
That's
wow.
you have to be there.
How do you explain the Migos to someone that was born in 2050?
That's an impossible question. You can't.
You can't.
You don't.
You can't. But in 2060, when we pull up this clip, hopefully one day.
Yeah, you'll be like, who are the Migos? I was like, so Grandpappy's left. Explain. Who the Migos were. Man.
Put it in a time capsule.
Exactly.
Are we coming back to you for the questions?
Honestly, should we rotate through?
Let's do one or two more. Let's do one or two more.
Okay, I have a question. This actually is kind of like esoteric, right?
Your best one left.
Shit, it's my best one.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two. One is very small. Should I ask the small one first? It's for Miles specifically.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, Miles. So, way back, 5 episodes ago, which basically means 5 to 6 months on this podcast, we had an episode where we spent a long time talking about Transformers. The question essentially was, what would you transform into if you were a transformer? What would your transformer name be? For reference, I was Wild Rider. Caleb originally was Trail Crash, and he said that shit is whack, and he's Calebtron now. So
Calebtron for sure.
For sure. So if you had a Transformers name, what would your name be, and what would you transform into as Dennis in a Cybertron?
Just to do something cool, I would transform into an ice cream truck so I can bring joy to the people of my community.
Hey, that's a great answer.
That's honestly a great answer. That's a great answer.
What would your name be? What would your name be?
Greenie.
No. No.
Should be Candice.
Creamy. No way.
Creamy.
Lactose intolerance prime.
We can shorten that.
Lactose prime.
Maybe Lact Prime. I kind of like Lact Prime. You don't want to get caught lacking by Lact Prime.
Lactose intolerant.
That's a long ass name. Like, why you got 3 first names, nigga? Chill. We do 2 at the most. 2 at the most. I can see what ice cream off some Chick-fil-A shit. Not creamy, bro. It's unacceptable.
Nah, creamy is wild, bro. Creamy.
It's such a weird
You'd be
word.
like, yo, call me creamy.
Call me creamy.
Nah,
No, if somebody came up to me and said,
I
call me.
would never call you.
If somebody call me cream, I'd be like, okay, I can deal with
Nah,
that.
for real.
Said call me creamy?
That could be your legal first name, last name, all of that. I'm never calling you creamy.
Wait. Am I a human being or like a
They're robots. They have robot
Change
names.
my answer, bro.
To what? Wait, you will call me and call creamy as a man? As a regular human being?
In my transformed form. That's what I'm saying.
No, as a transformer, your name's the same no matter what form you're in.
Yeah.
Optimus Prime is Optimus Prime. He's the truck or the robot.
Well, now can I think of the robot as the truck? It's just not hard, bro. It's not hard. It's like all the options.
I'm creamy.
Yeah.
Mouse when I'm drinking milk. Skull get swole like me. Robot mode.
What would your name be? And then we'll move on to Shane's next question.
I don't even know, man. I don't even know.
We'll keep it at creamy.
We'll keep it creamy,
We'll
honestly.
keep it creamy.
It's kind of growing on me at this point. It's creamy Wild Rider and Calebtron.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you, I will never call you creamy. Ever. I'm never calling anyone creamy. To be honest.
To be 100% with you.
Bro, we can move on.
We can move. Okay, so my second question is, and this again is sort of a look to the future. As technology advances, and things change. I've been reading this really good book. I'm forgetting the name. I'll have Batson plug it in, but it's about I think it's like the cloning of terror.
The book is called Cloning Terror: The War of Images, 9/11 to the Present.
So it talks about terrorism is again like these sort of like mimetic ideas and how it's tied into what the author calls a fear of the clone. It's written back in I believe 2008. So my question is, we talk about like medical ethics and these larger ideas as technology advances. Should cloning be legal? And how do we feel about that? No, why?
It would potentially double the population size in a couple of minutes.
Well, not a couple of minutes. I mean, the real logistics of cloning. It's not like a sci-fi show, right? Like you literally are like.
It's a couple minutes.
You're basically
double the population of the earth.
If they were nice.
How do you think cloning works? Honestly,
if it works as it does in sci-fi movies,
but it doesn't.
It could happen in a couple seconds. Star Trek level cloning?
It's not mitosis, and then we're cloning.
Wait,
every clone.
Proud Family movie.
Those were made of peanuts. That's clearly not how it works.
This was made in a couple seconds, man. They were like 1,000 of them. Gorgons, peanut gorgons.
Nah, okay, low key, I had a really good friend. I'm not gonna name him. Who But we always used to say that his head was shaped like the peanut kids off the Proud Family. Have you all seen the Proud Family movie? For those who haven't, they're like little, they're a peanut man. That movie's really weird. The villain's like a burnt up clone of George Washington Carver, and he's cloning peanuts. But they
were shaped like Aunt Jemima.
They were kind of built like, well, no, that's now the Pearl Milling Company. That's not.
I've seen that.
Post 2020, they finally decided, damn, this was kind of racist, guys. We're still gonna sell the pancakes, but now it's the Pearl Milling Company.
Nah, fuck that.
Yeah, now there's no more Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben's rice, also racist. I don't know.
Did they change the name?
I don't know if they actually. I think they kind of stuck their ground, which I don't respect. But
Low percent.
Oh, we're on low battery. Let's wrap it up. So clones is a no for you?
For me,
for me, it's a hell no. 100%.
Wow.
Fuck no. I'm not even like. I don't even know how to say this like in a PC way. so maybe let me not say it at all. But like honestly, there's enough people on Earth.
Oh, this nigga Thanos. That's why. Yeah, he's trying to say that.
No,
but that's not. So I'm not even thinking about cloning in that sense.
Right? But actually, no. Let me. Sorry,
you're right.
But okay, here's like my actual thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like inherently, being human is being imperfect, and like I think, like cloning and being able to like surgically be able to like edit genetics, DNA at like the very like molecular level, like that at that point, like you're just, in my opinion, I feel like that really like removes like the experience of what it means to be like a human being. And so like that's why I'm like I wouldn't like that, and I also feel like it's just like it's really like not necessary. Like what do we need that for?
Well, I mean, could I say this? Like, I think my cloning, and my answer is not necessarily yes. I don't know where I stand on it actually. For me, it's kind of like the understanding that it's not like, okay, everybody's just a free clone. Like, I read this book called The House of Scorpion once. It's YA, but it's actually really fucking good. And it's basically like in like the near future, this opiate farmer, super fucking rich. The main character is a child clone of him. The kid doesn't learn he's a clone until later on. And he meets the dude, and the dude like kind of like adopts him. But then he finds out that he's not the first clone. This dude is like 120 years old and basically like clones himself. And once they get to a certain age, he basically like harvests them for organs. And this is just one he happened to take liking to. So it becomes this whole saga. It's very, very good. Everyone should read it, honestly. But my thought with cloning has always sort of been like, one, we don't necessarily have to clone a whole human being. And two, I think of it in the same way as like stem cell research, where it feels controversial, but the reality is like if we can recreate the cells of your heart and clone like a perfectly healthy heart and your heart is unhealthy, like that could radically like change. Like I functionally feel like if we believe the notion of the human spirit, I understand why people would be upset about the idea of cloning. But if we believe the idea of the human spirit and we call that something unique, then fundamentally, somebody with your same genetics, but born at a different time in a wildly different context from you, is not the same person. We wouldn't call twins clones of each other, even though they're split from the same egg and made from the same genetic recombination, especially if they're identical. We would call them different people. You know what I mean? They're not like no. I mean, some twins are like, oh, we got a twin since because they've grown up in the same context together. But you know, like, yeah, just to wrap it up, like, really, I feel like
it's gonna be on the cutting edge of cloning science.
If somebody cloned me, I would call that clone a different person because it wouldn't be me. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not you, right? But there's a part of you there.
If only like my base like genetic code.
How would
hey bro, you watch out for background.
No, I mean, we're running out of time here, but like, how would you feel if there was a clone of Shane in this room right now?
In the room?
Yes.
Oh, that's really
I'd have a lot of questions.
Oh, right.
Right.
You would feel uncomfortable, right?
I know.
How would you feel if there was a clone of Miles in this room right now?
I'd be annoyed as fuck, bro.
Yeah. Wait, of all things. I don't know. For our audience, like, I really want you to ponder this, and I'm totally cool if you're not on the same page as any of us, especially me. But like, how would you feel about the idea? And I like to joke because I have like my favorite hypothetical, like if you're trapped in a room with a clone of yourself, and you can't leave the room unless like
one of you dies.
One of you dies, or one of you like is satisfied sexual completion. I like asking the hypothetical because I feel like those are the two extremes of how you can interact. No, I feel like those are two extremes of how you can. Oh, hold on. Let me finish. Don't cut me off this time. I feel like those are the two extremes of how you can interact with like another human being, as I think through violence or like the act of like.
I don't know.
You see what I'm saying, right? So if you have to choose one another with a literal carbon copy of yourself.
You're talking about 7 minutes in heaven with your.
Functionally, yeah, but violence is also on the table. So for me, I feel like that's kind of
wow.
It's an interesting thought experiment, and it feels like a stupid hypothetical, but I do feel like it's an interesting thought experiment, especially when we talk about self-love, all this, like in an abstracted version, if we met ourselves. Why is our immediate response that this is like the worst thing ever? Like it's our ability to understand ourselves externally, an experience we literally would never have if we didn't invent mirrors. And what is social media if not a mirror that we get to show everyone else? A reflection of our best selves. Like, if this expanded what we've been talking about this whole conversation, like, if this is an expansion of yourself existing in front of you, how do you interact with them? That's it. That's all I gotta say on clones. I don't have an answer on whether or not that shit should be legal for its medical.
You gotta get all right, let's give it a yes or no.
I'll give it a yes. I'll give it a yes.
No. Clones should be legal? No.
Okay.
I'll also say no.
All right.
I'll also say no.
Because if it's legal, then that means like the patent can get in any hands possible.
Yeah. Well, it's depending, right? Because some patents are intellectual property. It's pretty close specifically. So there's only one way to do it, and you patent it first. You
ever seen the Prestige though?
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't seen The Prestige in so long. I need to watch The Prestige again.
Hey, that movie is great. If anyone is listening to this right now and hasn't seen The Prestige,
please watch The Prestige.
Go watch that.
Add that to the list of anything but work movies.
What's his name? Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman?
Yeah, Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman?
He is huge and he is a Jackman. Hugh Jackman. Go watch that movie.
Yeah, go watch The Prestige.
That movie is fire.
Yeah, go watch some good shit. We also recommended Ex Machina Once Upon a Time. You should watch that movie.
Along the same lines, for sure.
Along the same lines, definitely talking about, what makes a person human. Or Gattaca, talking about gene editing.
That's with Ethan Hawke?
Yes, with Ethan Hawke, dude.
I haven't seen that one.
Excellent movie. That ending goes wild. Love that movie.
Is cloning involved?
Less cloning, more like just like perfecting embryos before they're born. Nah, it gets deep. When we're talking about human potential, like that movie gets deep. I love it. Big fan. With that being said, we're running low on battery on the laptop, and we can't charge the laptop and record at the same time.
And we got some shit to do tonight.
Yeah, you've been duped. This entire show has been a pregame. We're about to go turn up right now. Yeah, we're drinking not water. This whole time. A toast. Shout out Miles Menafee, please.
Thank you for bringing me on. This has been so much fun.
You'll be back.
Well, he's gonna be back. You might catch us on Real Ballers Read sometime soon. Big low-key book recommendation. The 5th season, the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin is fucking excellent. If I'm on Real Ballers Read, I'm absolutely gonna do that shit about that series. So, yeah, guys, thank you for joining us for another episode of Anything But Work. Hope you don't mind like the 2 significant pot. Look at that smile. This charming smile. Would you ghost this man? I wouldn't. Come on now. You look good. Alright. Peace be with you. Yeah. Miles, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you, Miles.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miles.
Hope you enjoyed the ride.
Peace.
Peace.